the year 2004, and I'm Joe Murray interviewing Edith Landau, and I feel this is a very, very important milestone in my recording career. Getting hold of Edie is a very, very difficult thing. She is such a busy person that it was with great difficulty, as I've just mentioned, to get her to agree to a time. So I'll start right in. Edie, I know your maiden name was Goldbergs. Tell me about the Goldbergs.
Well, yes, my father came from Poland. He was in the Polish army, and he was trained to be a barber at that time. And my mother was a Steinberg. They met in Winnipeg, and we lived in a little town called Selkirk, Manitoba.
Oh, let's go right back. Why did they come? How did they come to Winnipeg, and why did they come to Winnipeg?
Because of conditions in Poland and Russia. My mother came from Russia, and you know it was the Tsarist movement. And my father's brothers. When did they come? Let me think of it. I think they came in around 1926. And they more or less escaped because they had to come to a better country. And my mother had lost all her family, most of her family. She twin sisters who were, one was a pharmacist, I don't know what the other one did, and their family. But my father came over with, let me see, 5 brothers. I should really have been prepared for this. There was, 5 brothers, yes, and they all came to Winnipeg.
Why Winnipeg?
Why Winnipeg? Because...
did they know anybody here?
No. Because my grandfather, who was a Goldberg, Shmuley, he actually was in a little town outside of Winnipeg, and then Reverend Schreiber invited him to come to Ottawa and be the shamus and teacher, whatever, at the James Street Shul. And right after his wife, my late grandmother, passed away, she is buried here, he moved back to Winnipeg, where the rest of his children were. I'm just trying to think what else you would like to know. My father had a store in Selkirk, Manitoba. And then because
what kind of store?
It was a general store.
Yeah.
And there were only about 10 Jewish families there, and they subsequently all moved into Winnipeg. I was born, actually, at the St. Boniface French Hospital, St. Boniface Hospital in Winnipeg in 1933. It's a hospital with nuns, as I recall. It was a Catholic hospital. My father had to drive in terrible weather with an old, whatever car he was driving was probably an old Ford or something. And then this is where we lived until I was 4 years old, and then there was nothing Jewish there, so we all, moved into Winnipeg, and my father opened another store. He had a series of stores in Winnipeg. The last one that he had was a chain store actually called the Tomboy Stores. Yes, I had 2 brothers, Ben Goldberg and Arnold Goldberg. My brother Ben is 2 years younger than myself, and my brother Arnold is 10 years younger than myself. My mother worked in the store with my father, and I can recall in all the stores there were a lot of Mennonites and Hutterites around that area. They used to come in, and one thing I can still see are these people with black outfits walking out of the store with a whole banana,
a stalk of
bananas. Everything was flour, bags of flour. Of course, they were in communities, little,
sure,
communal areas. Found it interesting. My grandfather, Shia.
Which one was that? The one they called Gillette?
Gillette, yes, okay, because he wore a black kippah all the time, one of these big square ones. He had a white beard, and he wore a capota, and he used to stand around the store. Of course, he couldn't speak English too well, but anyone that came in used to call him Santa Claus. He was a very joyous type of person. He was, I know what he did. He was what you call, he had a lumber field, a lumber business in Rovnov. That's about all I mean, I know my son Gerald will know a lot more about that. He's picking up a lot of research on the Goldberg side of the family right now. I'm trying to think what else. Anyhow, came to Winnipeg, grew up in Winnipeg, in a very lovely Jewish community, very close, a lot of friends. At one point, I'm just trying to think, I was in all the operettas at St. John's Tech, which was a high school filled with Jewish, I'd say about 80% Jewish
like the
people.
like Montreal's Baron Bean.
That's right. So St. John's Tech was exactly the same type of thing, and I was in all the little Jacob Sullivan operettas. I also sang in the Jewish half hour with Noah Whitman. There was a half-hour Jewish program
on the radio.
On the radio, and we were a quintet, and actually three of the men are now rabbis all over the place. Then I was I was invited to sing at the Rosh Hashanah choir. I was brought up in an Orthodox home.
But the shuls were mostly Orthodox?
Yes, but the two other main shuls were the Rosh Hashanah, which was the large conservative shul, and the Shara Zedek. Now, I was invited to sing at the Rosh Hashanah synagogue. I sang there for 5 years with some of the great chazan, the youngest, Jacob Kusavitsky. It was really wonderful singing there. My parents belonged to the Bet Yaakov Shul on Jarvis Avenue, which was an Orthodox shul. My father, as I recall, although he was busy in the store all the time, every Sunday morning, he had a wonderful voice. I probably, inherited that. Not as good as his, but...
No, he was a tenor.
But I used to hear his voice. It was resounding in the house every Sunday morning before opening the store. He would, Lakeville and all that. He had time for that then. And I had wonderful memories, and I had great friends there. And I was the youngest female in the Rosh Hashanah choir at that time.
What community associations or groups, like for young people?
I belonged to Young Judea. I was a member of Young Judea at that time. We used to get together Saturday nights after Shabbat. I went to Young Judea camp. And I'm just trying to think what interesting.
Okay, you're on.
I can remember fond memories of every 4 months going to the U.S., actually going to Chicago. My late father had a lot of relatives there. They shortened their name from Goldberg to Gold. And every 4 months, we would take the Hiawatha, the train to Minneapolis and on to Chicago with trains, and visited with our relatives there. And to this day, we still are in touch with certain offspring by the name of Schnitz, Goldberg and Schnitz. Those were the names. And if I say it.
Okay.
And I do remember getting together with some members of the family, and one was so important. I mean, I was almost, scared talking to him. He was the assistant to Mayor Wagner at the time. I remember that vividly. Very, very polished type of man.
Okay.
I was on the sports. I was in the inter-school volleyball teams. I was third baseman for a team. I also took ballet. I'm really going back in history. I took ballet for 2 years when I was 5 and 6, but that's sort of going all the way back.
Yeah.
I went to Talmud Torah for 9 years. I graduated from Talmud Torah. This is after public school. And I can remember the Rashi, which I thought was, so easy in those days. Now I can hardly read Rashi. However, I'm laughing to myself now when I think about my dear Rosh Hashanah choir. Two of the people kept on asking me to go out with their relatives. Blind date, and I thought,
How old were you at the time?
I was 17, and I thought that's really not my type, my style, and because I had a lot of male friends. At any rate, I did finally agree to go out with somebody, and I asked Edith, what's her name, how old is your cousin? She says, well, he's as old as you want him to be, and he lives in Chicago, and he comes in very often. Anyways, I agreed to go. The funny thing is, when the doorbell rang, I had my brothers standing at the door, and they were to wave to me if I were to go or not, or to say that I was sick. And they gave me the high sign, great. Anyhow, it turned out he was like 16 years older than myself, but he was dashing, extremely handsome, like a movie star. I went out with him. And this is like a Hicktown girl going out with, with somebody who was so polished.
The suave Earl Flynn type.
Took me to all the most wonderful places in Winnipeg. And then he kept on calling, and my parents were very, very upset about my going out with somebody, with an older man, 16 years older. He's already set in his, lifestyle, and he probably has a woman in every port. And that lasted about 2 years, on and off. He'd come into Winnipeg. I'd go out with him. I guess he liked my style. At any rate, I put an end to that because it was going nowhere. And at that point, one of my friends, I guess I was 18, 19, and one of my friends, Faye Stoller at the time, was one of my friends, and she got married to Mo Zipman here in Ottawa, and she was really very lonesome. And one Christmas she said, could you please come and visit with me? I need some of my old-time friends. And I went,
The Zipman that you mentioned, didn't they have a candy store on the Lucy Street?
Yes, I believe so, but I didn't really know too much about her husband because
Well, you were only here for a visit.
I was only here for a short visit, and she had a party one evening, and pardon me, my correction is that I was 22, I just turned 22, and at that party is where I met Izzy, who became my husband 6 months later.
Right.
And he was with a date from Montreal, and he asked me out that same evening, and that was it. Can I go back?
Okay, you just thought of something.
The Rosh Hashanah, because I was at both choirs, the Jewish.
You were telling me about another choir.
And the Rosh Hashanah and the Jewish Community Choir.
No, but you were saying something about Brown or something.
Brownstone, that's the choir. He was the director. I was in that choir for many years also.
Is it a famous choir?
Yeah, the Jewish Community Choir under cantor Benjamin Brownstone.
Is like Ben Lola's type?
Much more famous.
No kidding.
He was the guy.
Yeah.
In Ottawa, cantor Benjamin Brownstone.
Huh. In Winnipeg,
he
you
was
mean?
also a teacher. He had the Talmud Torah. Yeah. And he had we were a great choir.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna. But I should mention that I was in that choir for many years also.
Okay, we just left off where you came to Ottawa for a short visit. What were your impressions of Ottawa? Because you come from the big metropolis, Winnipeg. So what was Ottawa like?
Well, as I say, I love the city. It was quite different from Winnipeg.
Yes.
The fact is, I mean, I visited around. I saw the sights at that time.
Yes. Yeah, you were
and
a tourist.
Izzy and I was a tourist. That's quite true. And Izzy was very busy.
Yes.
And he used to see me after work late at night because
Yes.
I don't know, he was always busy.
Yes.
And as a young accountant, and my mother was a little upset because I wrote that I met this very, very nice fellow, and he had asked me to stay on for perhaps another week because he wanted me to go to an open house for the late Morris Cohn. They just bought a house in Rockcliffe. And I called my mother, and she said, you have to come right home, otherwise I'll send the police. Anyways. Anyhow, I said, I'll just stay for another weekend. She said it was okay. And then Izzy and I wrote to each other, and he came to visit me in Winnipeg in the June that same year, and we later got married in November on the worst possible day that you could possibly think of, but great wedding.
What?
It poured, it hailed, and all his relatives from Detroit could not get into Winnipeg by plane. They had to take the train. My brother, who was at University of Toronto at that time, his was the last plane in on the Friday. Two of Izzy's ushers, Strozunder and Herb Gossowich, could not get in. All planes were grounded, and they got as far as Toronto, and they had a great weekend in Toronto, not at our wedding. Fort Garry, I was scared to go to sleep on the night of our honeymoon. It was impossible because the rains were thrashing down, and the French shutters of the Fort Garry Hotel were opening and closing, so I had no sleep. We had no sleep that night.
Yeah, and then you drove?
And then we drove very, very slowly. We drove Wisconsin, and that was the second night of our honeymoon, and we stayed up and watched the Eisenhower election, which I believe was not November the 5th or 6th at that time. And then from there we drove to Detroit and met all of Izzy's relatives who couldn't make the wedding. And
do you remember the car that you were driving in? A new one or a clunker?
No, it was a fairly new car. It
yes.
Was a fairly new, I guess he got a new car for the occasion.
Okay.
And yes, and we moved into, he had rented this apartment, the Beverly Apartments, owned at that time by Oscar Pedagorski.
Whereabouts? On
Chapel and Daly. And we were there up until I got pregnant. I got pregnant in my 5th year of marriage, and we were told to leave because they didn't want to have children in that apartment building. So
you moved into this apartment?
We moved into this apartment, which Izzy had found. There was no furniture. There were boxes and a couple chairs. And of course, I said, this will never do. How could we ever have people over? Anyhow, I ran out to Green's Furniture. It was owned by Sid Green, and I immediately bought a house full, an apartment full of furniture, table, chairs, living room furniture. There was a bed there. That's the one thing he did buy, was a double bed. And those were the days. But for washing facilities, we didn't have any washing facilities. So we used to go to the corner of Chapel and Rideau Street. There was a washomat there. And I would run into Joe and Jessie Murray and Sylvia, my sister-in-law, because they lived on Rideau Street, Sylvia Shear. And everybody was doing their washing. It was a very friendly, little spot. And Louise Glatt at one time came in because it was a place to meet. At any rate,
so where did you do your shopping?
Well, I remember the store, there were characters in the store. Danes, that's where I did my shopping, and then there was Sugarman's, I did my shopping there.
Where were they?
But what was wonderful, first of all, is being able to walk downtown to the market.
Yes.
That was a real plus living where we were, because I used to take these walks down to the market, pick up my father-in-law, who enjoyed going to the market to shop there. And of course, I found a job at the National Research Council. I worked there for 5 years, actually.
There was no JCC at that time. There was just the Rita Street show, I think.
Is that all there was?
Yeah. There was.
Well, at that time.
And King Edward. King Edward show. And Rita Street
No,
show.
when I got married, that's when Beth Shalom had started.
Is that right?
Oh, yes, Beth Shalom had started, exactly. Because Cantor Rabin, he was the cantor there at that time, and then he invited me to to sing in his choir.
Oh, right.
So there I was again, another choral group for me to join. And even when I had my first child, Gerald, I said, I have to quit the choir. I've got a baby. He says, no. He says, you'll come with the baby with the little car seat. You will come and bring him to practice, and I'll get you all caught up on what you've missed. And I had to obey. He was just a lovely person to sing with. It was a great choir. Met a lot of nice people there too. And one of the nice things is I had ready-made friends, Izzy's friends, when I first got married. There was Joe and Jessie Murray, there was Herb Gossowich, there was Rose Zunder, Morley Goldfield, and his new wife, the late Diane Goldfield. These were all his buddies at the time. Izzy and I became good friends with Louise and Harvey Glatt. Just trying to think. We had a very nice circle of friends, and we had lots of good times together.
From the Chapel Street area, you moved to?
Well, we had to leave the Beverly Apartments, and we immediately bought a house on Alta Vista and Micmac.
Yes.
I had Gerald there. I gave birth to Gerald there, and 2 years later I gave birth to Michael, and we felt the house was too small, so we built just a couple blocks away on Crocus Avenue. We built another home.
Yes.
Where I am to this date.
Yes, yes. I can remember going to one of your parties. That was a very easy thing to do in those days. Just invite some people over for coffee. And
there were always people at our house. We always had, people for dinner, just people in the evening. There was always parties at the house. And one thing I recall at the house on Micmac and Alta Vista Drive, as sitting with Joe and Jessie Murray on our front stairs, and Izzy talking Joe into leaving D&H Cigar Store and doing something a lot better with his life, like going back to school and making something of himself. I remember that so distinctly. It was very, very late. It was after 2 o'clock in the morning, and subsequent to that, Joe went back to school and became a school teacher and then a principal of the school.
Sometime in the future I'll go into greater detail about this episode because it's a very important thing. But okay.
How can you bring that in?
Well, like what?
That, because I like that.
Entertainment in those days.
Like what? Like what?
Well, how we amused ourselves in those days.
Don't.
No, okay. Like what? I've got my finger on there. Let's go. So, about what?
No, put it down.
That's right. So?
We made our own fun.
Yeah.
In those days, our entertainment was very simple. One would say very unsophisticated. But we had a pile of laughs. We just, made our own fun. We'd bring our children to each other's homes for an evening coffee and fun. I distinctly remember the Ouija board session.
Yes.
And that we had learned that, with the Ouija board, you put your hands together on the board, and things will rise up, and it'll be in another world type of thing. And along comes Joe Murray.
Who was there?
There was Joe Murray, there was Cyril Zunder, Betty Mossian, and Abe Mossian, Cyril Zunder. And the boys did their own thing, and we were just obsessed with this Ouija board. And along comes Joe to kill the whole thing with his expression. He wrote some different letters on message on the board. And what did the message turn out to be? The message was, I am a prisoner in a mezuzah factory. And we just howled.
You didn't howl. You guys went bonkers.
We went bonkers. We did. There's so many wonderful evenings that we all spent together. We were a fun lot. My husband, that Izzy had told me on the second night of our honeymoon, was that he's starting his own business, and he said, you're going to have to create a life for yourself, Edie. and because I'm going to be busy, probably working nights and everything. And
well, he was an accountant.
yeah,
Yeah.
And that was at that time. I mean, I broke into tears. I mean, here I just got married. I have to make a life for myself, which I did, and it is the best advice that anyone could ever give a wife, because now that he's gone, I'm always busy.
Yes.
Days I belong to it. Of course, being a newlywed, you have to join. I joined Hadassah. Subsequent to that, I joined B'nai B'rith. Then I became part of the board of Beth Shalom. These are things that you do, you know, when you have children. So I was I belonged to several organizations. I sang, you know, with Cantor Rabbin. I was busy bringing up my children, sending them to Hillel, and I didn't work for the first 5 years. I didn't work for the first 5 years of their lives. I waited until my children were in school full time. That was after the National Research Council, and then I found myself a job at Carleton University in the economics department, where I worked for 25 years. But it was part time. It was a 4.5-hour job, 25 years, and after Izzy passed away, Dennis Forces, who was the vice president at the time, Naviva Friedman, 8 months after Izzy passed away, they invited me to be the administrator in a new program that they had started there, the Center for Initiatives in Education, which came, I guess, at the right time.
Yep.
It was a place, as my boy said, to hang my coat and be busy. So then I was busy again for a couple of years, but then they had wanted more time. I only worked a couple of hours a day, and I wanted my freedom to visit my grandchildren out of town. I needed more freedom to travel, and so I gave that job up.
Now, do you still have ties with the university?
To this day, I am friendly with a lot of my profs,
Yes.
who I see occasionally for lunch. I am in touch with all my former bosses. I had 9 bosses, and they were all very, very good to me. They knew that I was taking off all the Jewish holidays, and they respected all of that. My 25 years at Carleton was really a wonderful time in my life as well. I made many friends there, and to this day I am still friendly with several professors.
But you had nothing to do with the students per se, or did you?
Oh yeah, they all came to my office. I was like a mother there. I don't know what it was. I don't want to say that though.
Yeah. Okay, no, but have you noticed a lot of changes with the students over the years?
I noticed that Carleton at that time did not have that many Jewish students. They seemed to always have gone to out-of-town universities, including my own children, my own children who went to Toronto University. Nobody seemed to stay in Ottawa. The Jewish families here, very, very few.
Yeah, so...
one of the things that Izzy and I did, we belonged to we joined the National Arts Center, and the Ottawa Little Theatre.
One of the things that we used to do often was do a lot of walking at night. None is done anymore.
No, not really. It's not that the city has changed tremendously, and you've got different types of people from different, countries, and you don't feel safe
Exactly.
anymore.
Exactly. The stores are different too, aren't they?
I remember Freeman's, when it was Freeman's. I mean, I was there all the time, going up to the second floor, and there was the late Lawrence Bilski, a very friendly person, always greeted me with, "How are you today, Mrs. Landau?" He seemed to know a lot of the people, but I guess it's because I sang with his late wife, Esther Bilski.
Yeah.
Oh God, in the basement, you had to have your chocolate malted. My goodness, that was a must. That was a must. Every time I ventured into Freeman's, the first thing I did was have a frosted malted. Delicious.
Well, I just saw they were selling authentic Freeman malts at a store. You know what we paid for them, eh?
cents.
5 cents.
Yeah.
These were
Yes, yes.
$2.95 a glass.
Well, it had a name, authentic, you know.
Yes.
You're going to pay anything for authentic.
Anyway, butchers.
Well, of course, Mrs. Zabar, that was the butcher.
Yes.
And of course, my late father, and this was before this is my father-in-law. Apparently, I understand he had a most wonderful delicatessen that I was, you know.
I can start to drool just thinking about it.
They say his smoked meat was really the best. I mean, I have no idea, but anyway, he was a good butcher. I know that. But
Now
I have vague
that
here.
pretty well takes up the first section.
First section.
First
oh my
section.
God.
There is another section. I know that you have an appointment today.
No. How long is this next section going to be?
Well, how long do you want to make it?
Another half hour.
For sure we can get it done easily.
The whole thing?
Yeah, we'll have it all done in half.
Is that all the sections?
That's right.
The whole thing?
Yeah.
Good, because I'll shorten it.
Okay.
Got another.
And now we're going to turn the tape over to the other side, and while I have her here, we'll have a very short break. We'll have a cup of coffee. I started off saying, Edie, how fortunate I am that you were able to give me some time, and even now we're on a time schedule because you are busy. So let's start. What do you do to occupy all those spare hours?
Well, I just come back from my walk. I walk every morning for 1 hour with my neighbor across the street, Tybee Marcus, and we discuss politics. We have great discussions on our walk.
Where do you walk?
We walk. We usually walk by the river in nice weather. In lousy weather, we walk inside Billings Bridge. Other than that, we have a route around our area up to Smythe Road, and you know all the in and
You say the river. That's where the swans are.
Yeah. We walk there, but we haven't done that this year because there was some construction going on in that area. And then for my walk, I've always got appointments, different things that I have to do during the day. It's hard to manage a house by myself. There's all kinds of business transactions I have to make as well. And my day, well, it's not my day. I do meet friends. I do not play golf and I do not play bridge, but somehow I haven't got time for that. I'd love to do these things, but I'm too tied up with a lot of things. I do sing in the Ottawa choir, and
You've always enjoyed singing.
I have been singing since I'm a little kid. Actually, I've been in choirs. Going back, I even forgot to say earlier that even in the school choirs and in the elementary and junior, I used to be in choirs where we used to sing Christmas carols for different organizations and different schools. I've always been a choir. I'm a great choir member. I love singing. I love music. So I am in the Ottawa choir under Cantor Ben Lolo, and I also am in the Shul choir at Beth Shalom. We're going through some tremendous changes at the shul that I've always belonged to. We now have family seating, and I don't know how far it's going, and I am sort of in a quandary. I am just staying on. I just want to see, what the future will be for Beth Shalom.
But with the choir, aren't you people in media a lot?
Yes, we are. As a matter of fact, we just did last month we did a wonderful interfaith concert at Beth Shalom. It was absolutely wonderful, and with 5 different faiths. There we had the Muslims, we had the Roman Catholics, we had the Hindus, ourselves. We had over 700 people. It was a wonderful event, and might be an annual event. Cantor Ben Lolo is very energetic, and of course I went to Israel with him in 2001 to the Zimriah, which was a great learning experience.
What's that?
That's a gathering of choirs from around the world. Actually, we were the only choir at that time, 2001. that actually did go to Israel. All the other choirs opted out because of the start of the terrorism in Israel. None of the American choirs came, none of the Canadian choirs, but all the European choirs did turn up. These were all non-Jewish choirs. A lot of our own choir members, we were a choir of 65 people at the time. The men opted out, they had businesses, etc., didn't want to lose their families, and it turned out we were only 15 female voices, but we wowed the people in Israel, and they were very thankful that we came. The 2 weeks was study. We had to study. We had workshops every morning and afternoon, and in the evening we had to attend concerts, and then in fact we had to study a piece of music, and they joined us with a South Korean choir. That was a women's choir. We were joined together for the workshops. We had to study a Hebrew piece of music, and and we had to perform. We had to do our own performance. We had to present our own concert as a visiting choir from Ottawa. As well, another evening we had to do the combined Korean and Shira Ottawa choir with another presentation. It was a wonderful experience. I was a little hesitant to go as well, but my boys convinced me that it's the right thing to do. And
I don't want to appear mercenary, but even though this is all for a love of music, it does cost you money.
Well, what happened was, I will say this, it did cost money, plane fare, etc., but the educational part, we did get a tax receipt because we were at workshops every day for 2 weeks.
No, but still, it does cost you money, so it shows just how, not involved, but how dedicated.
We were dedicated, it was, but it was a wonderful experience for those of us that went. And there's always something that we are studying for with Cantor Ben Lolo. I mean, as I say, we sang for the Queen a couple of years ago.
Yes.
We were invited to sing for the Queen with a couple of other choirs, with a gospel choir and a Ukrainian choir. It was great, and we were the Jewish choir. So it's wonderful.
Right. Who are some of the people there that you've been with for over the years?
In the choir?
Yeah.
Like in the Shira choir?
Yeah, but you've sung with some people a good deal of the time.
Ethel Malik. I mean, we've been in every choir, actually. There's Maureen Catt, there's Callie Cardish. I think she's a relative of yours as well. We have some very dedicated members.
Yes.
And what do I do? Of course, I travel. I've got all these... I'm forever going to Detroit. Izzy has a tremendous family living in Detroit, and as a matter of fact, I'm going in a couple of weeks for another affair. There's two sides of the family that live there. So in fact, it's my late mother-in-law's side and my late father-in-law's side, so there's always some function or another with the cousins. So we do see each other an awful lot, and I'm forever traveling. I do go to Boston. I have cousins who live there on my side. I just came back from Nashville last month. I had a wonderful wedding there.
Let's backtrack to Boston. One of the funniest things that I can remember you and Izzy telling us, recounting it's almost like a saga, the first time you went into Feline's.
Do you remember that trying on clothes there? My cousin Norma in Boston, she's an art historian, by the way, lots of fun, and my cousin is an endocrinologist. I mean, he's not well right now. Actually, Jimmy lived right next door to us in Winnipeg. We were very close cousins. And the big treat was going to Feline's basement years ago. I thought, my God. Oh, I thought, look at these wonderful brass Olgas, and next to nothing. You had to try these things on, like, right there. I mean, there were no dressing rooms. We were trying clothes on, taking off our clothes, putting clothes on. I mean, I shouldn't really talk about that. That was an experience. I thought, oh, Norma, I can't do that. Everybody does that.
Yeah. Now,
also,
you went to Nashville, family, or?
It was my side of the family. I got to see my family from Winnipeg there, so it was lovely.
I thought maybe there was a Grand Ole Opry.
I did. As a matter of fact, I didn't go to the Grand Ole Opry. We saw the grounds and everything, but I did go to a cowboy church service Sunday morning which was not in a church, but it was a hoot. You have to hold hands, close your eyes. You know, these are 5 Jewish people I went with, 5
Yes.
relatives, right? Close your eyes, and then the pastor, who is wonderful, very charismatic, close your eyes, and all of a sudden you're like in a trance, and he says, "Stand up, sinners, Jesus is going to save you." Anyways, my eyes were open, and I was looking around. The only 5 people that didn't stand up were the 5 Jewish people. And anyhow, he says, and those who did not stand up, of course, Jesus will help you anyways.
Well, that's good. Now, all these travels that you're mentioning are family-oriented for bar mitzvahs, simchas, and family affairs. Do you do any traveling just for the fun of it?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I'll go back to when I was, when Izzy was alive. We used to go to the, well, for 14 years we traveled to, the round was, he took 2 weeks off in the summertime, and we went to Niagara-on-the-Lake, Stratford, then to Tanglewood, then to Saratoga. So we got our music, which we loved. And after Izzy passed away, my brother Ben in Winnipeg and Serki, my sister-in-law, are great. I traveled with them. They invited me about a year after, and I didn't want to go. They invited me on a cruise, and I didn't want to go. I thought it wasn't right, because Izzy and I never had a chance to travel that much. I mean, we did go to England. How I went to England with Izzy was I called his secretary, and she told me when he had a free week, and I made all the arrangements, and I said, "We're going to London." And he couldn't say no. He had to leave the office. At any rate, yes, so I went on the cruise. The year after, I went to Italy. They keep on inviting me, and it's very nice to, go on these wonderful holidays with them. Bar mitzvah?
What's this?
Another thing, in traveling with Izzy, yes, we had a bar mitzvah. The Sunders had moved, Cyril and Rachel had moved to Israel. It was their son Renan's bar mitzvah. And this was in 1971. And we wanted to go. He said, "Sure, we'll go. We'll go for the weekend to Israel." Anyways, I thought he was out of his mind. And we did end up going. And, of course, we spent 10 days there. And we took Gerald and Michael with us. They were just, 7 and 9. And we had a wonderful time there. That was the first time that we had gone to Israel. And I was hoping that there'd be many more times to go. At any rate,
where else have you gone? In North America? Where else? Where do you want to go? That's
no, I'm hoping to go to Prague and Vienna. That's Prague, Vienna, and Spain. So that's one of my other trips that I hope to be doing.
It's like I'd want to visit 3 spots?
I do want to do that. At any, so those are the some of the highlights. Trying to think where else.
But wasn't there a connection between Michael and your brother?
Well, yes, my brother is a dentist, and I that's not the reason he became a dentist. I think he became a dentist because as a youngster he had everything wrong with his mouth. He had to have the teeth transplanted. He had to have a frenectomy because he couldn't say R properly. He had these frenums. He had everything done with his mouth, and I think he was trying to get even with the dentist for all that he went through in his younger years. Yes, of course, Michael is married to Faye Goldman from Toronto. They met actually at Camp Ramah. Michael was, I think, the oldest camper. He kept on going back because he was teaching at this point water skiing, which he loves. And Faye was head of swimming, and so the two of them met at Camp Ramah. As did my brother's son in Winnipeg meet his wife at Camp Ramah because Michael invited Marty Goldberg to teach sailing in Winnipeg, and he met his wife at Ramah as well.
Faye is a doctor.
Faye's a doctor, yes. Here at the she was started off at the Civic. And then she took medical education. She got her degree in medical education as well because she wanted to teach. And she was with the family medicine. She was one of the partners in family medicine at the Civic Hospital, and she is now she's in a partnership with 2 other doctors. Right, this is what she's presently doing.
What about Gerald? Gerald was involved
Gerald.
with computers, wasn't he?
Not in the beginning. Gerald was very good in everything, actually. I mean, this is one of the hard parts. When you're excellent in every type of endeavor, education, I mean, he was good in everything. He was either going to be a lawyer, a doctor, he reviewed a rabbi,
A heart surgeon and an astronaut.
He was reading Grey's Anatomy when he was like 7 years or 8 years old. I mean, you know, so we thought he was bent on being a doctor. Then he thought these things would be too boring. So he finally had to zoom in on something, and he tried to combine a little bit of the medical part with the math, which he was, you know, great in all the different maths. And so he took biomedical engineering and computer science. So he had a double type of major. And he is presently he's a scientist actually with IBM, and to this day I don't really know what he does, but I think it's important work. It has something to do with artificial intelligence and translations. I really cannot go any further into it because I am not, I have a computer, but I just do what I have to on the computer.
You were saying something about a university course?
Well, no, I was contemplating, you know, going back to university because I dropped out when I, you know, at the University of Manitoba because I didn't know where or what I wanted to be at that time, and I figured I was saving money for my parents, which was ridiculous. But anyways, anyhow, I had the opportunity to sign up for the Florence Melton course at the JCC.
What's that?
It's a Judea course given by Rabbi Braun and Rabbi Garten. So you're getting two perspectives. You've got an Orthodox rabbi and a Reform rabbi.
Yes.
And we are going through the Tanakh, and it is most interesting. I mean, I am learning new things every time I go to a session. And so this is enriching my life. I'm looking for that type of thing. Something more.
Homework assignments, no?
Well, one should, but I don't seem to find the time to do that.
Yeah.
There are no assignments. The assignments, there are readings. Yes, I have read a couple books that were, you know, that we were told to read if we wanted anything further on some of the topics, which I have done. I've taken the books out from the JCC library, so that in that sense, the course is very good for me.
Yeah. Talking about reading current novels or books. I know you.
Currently, I'm reading some mystery. I'm reading the #1 detective mystery book that's out. I think
Who's the author?
It was just written up in the paper. It's about it's a female detective agency, the #1 detective agency. It's in Botswana, and it's very interesting. I know there are 5 books. I've got book #1. That's just, you know, light reading. One of the books that I read that Rabbi Braun had mentioned is called As a Driven Leaf. That was a search, actually, for Judaism type of thing. I think excellent. If you ever want to read that, Joe, it's an excellent book to get hold of. Salt.
What salt?
I picked up a book. I bought my book when I went to Nashville. I picked up a book at the store at Borders, and it's called Salt, and I'm finding it very interesting. It's about a Vietnamese cook working for two theatrical women, and it's most interesting. Did you?
Magazines. You're a great subscriber to magazines. Do you read them all?
Yes,
Really?
I do.
The gourmet magazines?
Yeah.
And
Bon
you,
appetit, and I love to try some of the recipes.
Oh, do you try the recipes?
I certainly do. I certainly do. I don't only look at, I mean, I'm forever cutting out recipes.
Yes.
I try them all, and if I don't like them, I just tear them up. Yeah, get rid of it. I used to subscribe to Match magazine for my children. It's a French magazine.
Oh yes, Paris Match.
That's right. That's exactly. I tried to give them away to the library. They weren't interested, so they went in the garbage.
Yeah.
I've got National Geographic. Those are going to end up in the garbage too.
Yes.
I mean, I have a lot of these different sorts of, like the World Encyclopedia. There are better encyclopedias now. I've got all these things I'm eventually just going to have to give away, and libraries really don't want these things anymore.
I would suggest that when the time comes to give it, there are a couple of organizations that send these types of books up north to the native people and to the small communities that cannot afford libraries?
Because some of these, well,
I'm talking about an encyclopedia.
yeah, but not only that. I have Yiddish books, and Gerald has told me I really should, I should really send them to some. They're really old Yiddish books, but when he comes in August, he's going to have to go through those books again. And he said there is a place.
Yes, the depository.
Yes, there is a place. There's somebody here who will, come and take a look and make sure they're in good condition. So I've got boxes of books downstairs.
If you want, how do we end up this kind of an interview? I'm sure there are a lot of things that you can think of. 4 a.m. when you can't sleep, you'll think of something I should have said, or I could have said, or I would have said. Jot them down, and maybe, just maybe, when you get enough of these jottings, we'll do another interview. And this I'm doing with other people, so don't look aghast. This has been very enjoyable. We both reminisced a lot.
Brought back a lot of memories for me, Joe. And there is still more, as I say, like even now that I'm speaking. Yes, will I jot these things down? I guess I should, but you brought back very vivid happenings, and we could have elaborated a lot more on them, but you know what? Enough is enough right now. And I must run.